Rishad. Thank you so much for joining us. We're so happy to have you here. To help get us started, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, Jacklyn, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. I'm delighted to be invited. It's been a long wait to be on your on your show. Yeah, about me, I'm a life enhancement coach, and the reason I call myself that is to differentiate from life coaches. But it is what I essentially do, life coach. The thing is, it's like you get doctors, you get lawyers, you get refrigeration experts, and generally people put you in a box and they say, oh, you're a life coach. Oh, you're a yoga specialist. Oh, and so I had to come up with something different. But it's not what I do. I don't life coach, and I'm not life enhancement things, and I have no fridges either. In other words, I'm on a journey with my clients, and together I discover more about myself, and they discover more about themselves. So, in essence, that's what I do. I've been doing this for a few years now. Before I was doing mentoring in business, very business orientated, money orientated, and so this is the autumn of my life, heading to my winter of my life. So my summer is over, although it feels like summer's coming back. You know, when you feel like you still have that cold, you get that, the warm day and it's autumn. You're like, wow, where did that come from? So that's what it feels like to me, is that although I'm in my autumn, it feels like summer is returning to my life, and hopefully I can get back to spring. And it's a good analogy for what I believe that we all need to achieve, which is to return back to the childlike state of innocence, of purity. And so, yeah, I went through various processes. I discovered, like you did, a coach, not by my own wanting. There's a friend of mine that hurled me onto him, and I refused. And he said, no, meet with him anyway. And he asked these profound questions, like you mentioned. And I said, oh, I didn't even think of that, because we don't, right? And so then, the questions led to further investigation. And then I went through my own journey, and I said, well, one of the questions was, what do you ultimately want in life? And I said, I want happiness, I want peace, I want joy. But where was it? Was it somewhere out there, or was it something that I'm not just seeing within me? So anyway, we'll talk more about that. And so when I discovered my bliss and I arrived at myself, I said, what's the only thing a man can do or a woman can do once they've found their bliss and their joy, which is an impossible task in this day and age? I said, the only thing you can do is give it away. So I said, well, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set up a company, as I've done with the companies, and go give people the same directions back to themselves, in essence.
Oh, I love that. And you said something, and I originally was going to ask the question around what exactly is a life enhancement coach and how does it differ from the life coach or the traditional coach. But you said something, and so I want to narrow the question down, is you're on the journey with your clients. And I
Mm.
really want to explore that, because that is so amazing and so profound. And one of the reasons why I created the podcast selfishly is I wanted to continue my own journey. So can you talk a little bit about what does that mean to be on the journey with them?
It means that in order to be a good Zen coach, Zen Coach is the company, and I'll talk more about Zen a bit later if you like. But in order for you to be a coach with us, you have to first undertake a journey into yourself to discover all your things from your level of awareness, and then find your road back to yourself. And so when I'm with the client or teaching my coaches, I say to them, you need to not be there. You need to not be present. You need to take all your baggage, all your perceptions, all your interpretations of labels and judgments and books and stuff that you learned, throw it all away. Now become that person. And the two of you together go on this journey together, except that you are someone with that experience, which you are very careful not to interpret onto the client. So if I look at you and I say, well, she's American, and she has an American accent, her name's Jacklyn. All right, well, Jacklyn, because you're Jacklyn and you're American, I suggest you do this. And then you've lost the plot, right? Because you've really labeled a person. So that's what it is in essence, the journey together. So I share your pain, I become you, and together we find our way out. And it happens so much that when I'm on a journey with a client and we go into a deep state of hypnosis or suggestion therapy, which I do, sometimes my body shakes involuntarily. Sometimes I've got to lie down and sleep for the day because it takes so much, because I'm not your guidance counselor, I'm not your therapist, I'm not your psychologist, I'm not your pill recommendation specialist, and they all have their places and very useful in today's times. However, that's not me. So I'm not your guru, I'm not your advisor, I'm not your anything. So yeah, I say that I know nothing, and that's why I can be of use. The problem is we listen so that we can respond, you see. We're not really listening to undertake their journey, you know. So yeah, that's what it essentially means. And the discoveries are immensely more profound rather than me advising you and keeping you in check and all the rest of it. Because I need to know how you're seeing the world. I can't sit here and go, because that's what you do when you buy a self-help book, right? Well, you should wake up in the morning, join the 5 a.m. club, you know, no offense to Robin Sharma, and then do these things every day, and you'll be as rich and successful as me, or happy as I am. But that's not who that person is. It's not why can't you do it is the question, rather than this is what you must do, right? So what's going on from your level of awareness that has built up all these barriers? Because, you know, habits of successful people, you read it and then you're successful. No, you're not. That's why we have 100,000 titles every year of new books. It never stops. So there should be one formula to happiness, to joy, to habit forming, to living success. Why is it every year we have 100,000 new titles coming out on finding yourself? Why is it so difficult? It should be so apparent. So it's quite funny.
And so the other thing you mentioned and articulated so well with the seasons and how summer to autumn to winter. So I want to take a minute to go back, because clearly you haven't been a transformational coach your whole life. So after years in corporate, what happened? You know, we talked a little bit as we started about my aha moment
Yeah.
and my executive coach. I'd love to hear about that aha moment, that trigger point. What made you switch and move into this space?
Well, unhappiness, misery, depression, hating my life. I mean, do we need more? I mean, if you look at, it's not just corporate, it's life, you know, because I was in corporate for about 15 years and then I had various businesses which I was enormously successful at. And the more I acquired and the more success I gained, and it wasn't for me promotions, because I did the promotion thing and I said, now I want to conquer business, because that we came from a family line of business. And so I did that, but then it would be taken away from me. And I'm like, okay, let me start again. So yeah, I think my aha moment came when my health started failing, my relationship was falling apart, the amount of time I would spend consumed in my mind, in my head, saying, you know, trying to understand life, reading the book and, you know, implementing this process and that process. And I realized I was moving further away from my happiness rather than closer towards it. And I realized it's all just a big joke, right? This whole thing, and it's not corporate that's a big joke, it's life that's a big joke, right? And life can be spectacular and it can be meaningless and it can be adventure. It really is up to you what you want to make of life. And the only way I knew how to interpret life and what I'm supposed to do is by my upbringing. I didn't realize, and that was probably the aha moment, was that how much I've been influenced unconsciously about what I should be doing, why I should be doing it, who am I here to impress, what am I supposed to do with my life, and then even religion-wise, what happens after you die? Because then you're stuck between the two. So I must be successful, don't hurt anyone, but how do you then, you know, navigate the shark waters, right? Because you're getting bitten every point, and you're like, oh well, you know, it's the wrong thing to do, and you're gonna burn in hell. And then you're thinking, okay, well, what am I supposed to do? Because if I make success here, I'm gonna burn in hell, and if I make heaven there, I'm finished here, right? So you're really caught between you know, what's the frying pan and the fire in that particular way. So yeah, it is a challenging task. And when I uncovered all those barriers within me and did a lot of work, it was not easy. And as you know, unlearning a habit is so much more difficult than picking up. I mean, you know about smoking, drinking, any type of addiction. And the number one thing we're all addicted to is feeling like victims. It's our number one addiction that surpasses alcohol or drugs, is that life is happening to me and I'm a victim of life, whoever it is, male, female, child, adult, black, white, yellow, pink, whatever it is. And there's the problem. So owning up for your life is really important. So the unlearning process was once I bought into it from my coach's perspective, because he pointed out to me, why is it that you want to be successful? Well, isn't that what we all? And he says, no, it's not what we all. I don't want to be successful. Well, my measure of success is different to yours, isn't it? But success is a misnomer. What is success? You know, success is happiness. Maybe it's not, right? So yeah, it's the process of unlearning, and so first, I take all my clients through the process of first telling them how they've misinterpreted their lives, right? And then secondly, unlearning all those things. In other words, you have to make the unconscious patterns, make them conscious, and say, you know, you are like this, and you get angry over this, and you're sitting there feeling suffocated. Why are you feeling like this? Like, oh, because he troubled me, you know, because he told me nonsense. He told you something, but why did you interpret it this way? And why did it, you mean there's a separation between reaction, you know, and the outcome? Like, I can choose how I react. That's revolutionary, right? And so by me interpreting this, okay, I can do this. Then it was the process of retraining, and you can call them neurons or whatever it is, to create the life that you want to live in. It's not some fantastical imagination thing that you do. How do you want to engage in the world and in life and who you are? So the unlearning is the vital stage, but you will never let go of a belief unless you see the reason why, because that's why you created it, right? So, yeah.
There's so much there that's resonating with my own journey and
I
many
see
of our
that,
guests.
yeah.
But this concept of what I used to say, stepping off the treadmill or living subconsciously, living with design, and we make it sound so easy. Oh yeah, no big deal. You have that pause, you can react. But we also know it's not easy. For our listeners that are starting to ponder, you know what is the definition of success? Or you know what does living intentionally look like? How, in your experience, what steps can they take to go from that awareness where they may be now to action and really shifting from living as a victim to living as the lead?
The first step is to get to know yourself before you can change those patterns. So you have to recognize, and the problem is you have a mind that hides from you your patterns. And that's why you have someone like me or someone who is not invested in you. Like you go and ask, you know, I asked my best friend and she said I should do it. The reason she said you should do it because she wants to remain your best friend, not because it's good for you, right? So me as a coach, I'm going to say, do you really want to do that? How dare you question me? Well, this is what we're here to do, right? So then it's about asking the right questions. And I think coaching is all about that. And I'm not saying you need a coach, but you need someone who's not invested in a particular way and say, where did this originate from and why do you behave this way? So the changing of the pattern is repetition, repetition, repetition. It's just, so it's awareness. So for instance, if you react, oh, my wife upset me. That's what one of the things. You know, I was having such a great day and she came in and told me this. Okay, great. Now you want to change that? Or do you want to change your wife, right? Because you're going to find out another woman's going to do the same thing, right? And the self-sabotaging mind goes, no, she won't. And then they get married again. They go, I was better off over there. And it's too late because she's got married again. And she's like, well, you know, I'm glad you realized that you were the problem. And it's not blame either. But so then you've got to say, okay, well, I need to change my reaction. And so you say, so she said that. Now, how am I interpreting this thing? And then you have that 6-second window and you go, all right, she said that. Now I say to them, and this is one of the biggest things, judgment, how we fear what other people think, you know, what their perceptions are. So there's a two-step approach. One, you ask the question, is it true? Is it true? And people don't want to do that. The ego goes, how dare you ask such a question? So if they're saying to you, you've been so lazy, you never pick up your dish after you eat, is it true? We can take the laziness part out, but let's look at the facts. Do you pick up the dishes? You know, my clients get really angry with me and they're like, you can't ask that. Oh, yes, I can, because there's some fact in it. So if it is true, then you say, I'm so sorry. I should pick up the dish. Because that's what you're supposed to do as human beings, because you want to get along, right? And you want to stay married, or you want to stay at work, or you want to stay in a relationship. If you don't, then of course you go, no, you're an idiot, you're lazy. That's what the ego does first, is blame the person. that's making the statement. So, number one is it true? Number two, are they projecting what they perceive? So perception is projection. In other words, they're perceiving something that they see in themselves. So especially words like lazy. Lazy, you're lazy. Now, how did you get the word lazy? It was because of how that word was conditioned and shaped to you. Because if you tell a child that's 6 years old or 5 years old, you're lazy, they'll say, Mom, what's lazy? They don't know. So we teach them. Someone who sits on the couch doesn't do their work and the rest of it. So they're projecting what they see, not what you are. And then that's one step of avoiding that reaction of judgment. It's a big thing. And the male ego is generally stronger. I always say that when I'm coaching people, the male ego, and I'm generalizing here, but it's not general, right? But generally speaking, they would say, who are you to question me? I make a statement to them. A woman would say, what is he saying? And evaluate the statement rather than who's saying it. That's why we need titles behind our names, right? Oh, Einstein. If I put a post and said Einstein said this, then people go, Einstein. Well, it must be true then, right? But if you said, some guy in the bush in Africa said that, oh, well, that's really irrelevant, isn't it, right? And that's how we judge. So women. That's why most of my clients are women, because they get past that ego trap a little more easier. So if you can overcome your own mind and find bliss as a man, that's why I'm so proud of myself, right? Because for women, it's a lot more easier. It's not that it's not challenging, but once they say, you know what, this is not working for me, like you did, and you said, no, I got to do something, right? Whereas most men, they blame, right? And I'm not generalizing, but it is according to what I've found, because I hate generalizing.
Of course, I forget the name, but it's one of a philosopher that I followed very religiously in the beginning. And he talks about a scenario where if you're sick, are you going to take the cough medicine or do you give it to someone else? It's the same thing as
Right.
you need to take the cough medicine. You can't fix somebody else. You can't fix your cough by giving somebody else medicine. So
Yeah, one of my
that
clients said to me, I was coaching his wife, and he said, "Come in, I want to meet you." I said, "Okay, sure." I sat down, and he said, "So you're going to fix my wife?" And I said, "Maybe, but the real question is, who's going to fix you?" And he wasn't impressed at all with that, because he's perfect, right? Because my wife's broken, go fix him. Have you looked in the mirror, right? Instead of blaming everybody else. But yeah, it sounds like I'm attacking men, but I'm not. I mean,
No, of course.
not at all.
Um, Changing gears a bit, you have such a unique perspective on stress. And I wanted to ask if you can share that definition. What is stress?
Stress is interpretation, right? So something happens to you, and you react to that. So if you take the event away from the reaction, then it may not be stress. For instance, right? The example I used before. She said that to me, "I'm so stressed." She said that, but how you reacted was causing the stress. "I'm really busy today. It's really stressful." So why did busyness become stress? It didn't. So it's your interpretation of it. So, and what a lot of the times, stress is an indicator of fear. People don't know that. Is because they're afraid of the outcome. They're afraid of how it's going to play out. So they're giving it overly attentive attention, and they end up losing out anyway. So stress is caused by fear in many ways, and the fear is caused by expectation, right? I need this to be perfect for my boss, right? Now you say, "I'm stressed." You're not stressed. You're afraid of not meeting up to the expectation. So if you want to unstress it, you say, "Well, boss, this is going to be the worst document you ever received, and you can fire me if you want to." As an extreme example, right? And now you're like, "Well, and now I say, would you like to have coffee?" "Sure," because my boss thinks I'm providing the worst thing ever. So if it's half decent, now there's no fear, there's no stress. Yeah. So stress is interpretation many of the times, and stress doesn't exist in isolation. You don't wake up in the morning going, "I'm stressed." It's only when your mind becomes activated and you start playing out all the things that you need to do and all the results you fear of what you're trying to achieve.
So if now that if you take that as an example of stress is the resistance or the fear, how do we train ourselves to let that go? It's almost allow this whether it's mindfulness or accept things as they are.
Yeah,
What advice or tips do you have to get to that place?
that's a good question. So the traditional, but the broader view of handling stress is to let it go and listen to some music and walk in the forest and, listen to a happy song or call a friend. No, that does not work. You're kicking the can down the road, okay? Because that's going to come and bite you much more louder. It's not going anywhere. So I use a lot of the teachings of Rumi, Jalaluddin Rumi, who was a mystic and a poet originating in the place called Balkh, but he was known as a Persian poet. And he says that the cure for your pain is in your pain. So if you look at the Buddhist wisdom, you look at the ancient wisdom, is that what is causing my pain? So in other words, I'm stressed. Now, if we hold that stress, you see, pain, discomfort, anxiety, these are your body signs that it wants your attention. The body, the pain, the emotion, they're like children. They require your attention, not your numbing and ignorance of them. So when you quieten it down with an antidepressant or a drug or a good drink or whatever it is, it's not going anywhere. It may momentarily pass and then you're returning to yourself. So don't let it go. Grab it tight and call it back and say, I'm here with you. What's going on? What are we stressed about here? What is the nature of the stress? And you turn on the stress. So you approach it with the eye of love and compassion. And that's why you try to do a child and say, shut up, what's your problem? Get out of the way. Is that going to help? No. You say, son, daughter, what's going on? Right? Why are you feeling this way? And that kindness and compassion. We can be kind to the world. One of my clients said that. She said, the first time I realized that I was not kind to myself, I was kind to everybody. I would see the beggar on the street and give him money, and I would get into tears. And then she said, but the one thing that I never did was be kind to myself. So if you're kind to yourself, you won't ignore yourself. And when your body is calling out and your emotions are calling out saying, listen to me, I'm stressed, I'm anxious, I'm unsettled, I'm afraid, I'm overwhelmed, right? Fear is the general norm of today. So even if you weren't born with fear, if you put the TV on or switch on your social media, you will be. And it hasn't started now. We had the Gulf War, we had Iran, it's always been, because it's good business, right? Media is good business. If you switch on the media and say, look, today, nothing to be afraid of, go out, celebrate the day, take your children out, maybe the last day that you're ever going to have, forget about all this nonsense. Nobody's going to ever turn the TV on, because we by nature are 80% negative biased, right? So 80% of the time, we're looking in the environment for what's not working. And that's where our attention goes, right? So if I put my hand out and I put a dot in my hand, immediately, like if you look at your face, right? You'd be like, ooh, what's that? You didn't see the rest of your face, right? Right? We look at, it's like, so, you just notice that. And then you lose track of life in its essence. So, yeah.
Now that we touched on the what and to some degree the how, I want to talk about the why. You've been on this journey for yourself, for your clients. What are the benefits by shifting perspective, by being kinder to yourself, by letting go of the stress, by all these things we've talked about? What have you experienced? What your clients experience? What's the outcome?
I'm very much against outcomes, so I'm going to try and answer this in a way I understand the nature of your question. The ego mind always makes it personal, like what's in it for me? And so it's a valid question. So I would say there is no outcome except how you engage with life in the present moment would be entirely revolutionary. In other words, you would see things, as Wayne Dyer so beautifully said that.
That was who I was talking about earlier, Wayne Dyer.
Oh, Wayne Dyer is an amazing mentor of mine as well, an incredible soul, So he said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Look at change.
So the problem with these statements is they become something you stick on your fridge, right? Or on your toilet door, right? And you read it. But interpreting it and understanding that means that how you've seen the world and yourself, when you rewire that and you're like, I'm magnificent. She's magnificent. He's magnificent. My job is magnificent. Like I say to my clients, I say, oh, sorry, I have to go pick up my kids. I said, no, you get to go pick up your kids. I have to go home and cook. No, you get to cook because you got food, you got fresh food, and you're going to cook this beautiful meal. You don't have to do anything. You have the privilege and the honor of raising your children, preparing a meal, going to work, And so a wonderful book called Happy Money, Ken Honda, which is the Zen of money, and he says you have to thank your money. So you know how you look at your bills and you go, oh no, come on, did I spend that much on electricity? Turn the lights off, right? So instead of doing that, you do the opposite and you arigato your money. So in other words, you thank your money. Thank you, money, for letting me pay this bill. Thank you, money, for letting me buy a present. Thank you, money, for letting me pay my staff an extra 13th, check. So you're changing everything around you. And so what's in it for you is that engagement. And one of the outcomes is that you'll no longer have outcomes, and because you'll be letting go. What causes misery is expectation. Expectation is caused by measuring outcomes. So we're hoping when we get to the top of the mountain, we're going to feel happy. You never get to the top. You never get to the top. Life, even after you die, is a continuing journey of evolution, right? So you're never going to get to the top, which means you're always going to be in a state of lack. So give up the outcome, the destination, the way I want to go, and make it about here. And so, yeah, but it requires, most people don't come and see me until they hit a brick wall. So I say, when you hit the brick wall and your face is against the wall and you go, oh my God, what have I done? Then I need a life coach. By then, it's a little late because we don't know how much damage has been done, either physically or emotionally or to your relationship. So I say, if you're very lucky, as I was, that before you hit that brick wall, take a pause and say, where am I going? What am I doing with my life? And is this what my soul really wants? Now, Joseph Campbell is an incredible author and an incredible human being who I've studied so much about. And he says, you have to follow your bliss. This is the only thing to do. But first, in order to find your bliss, you have to slay your dragons. Your dragons are your expectations, your environment, your parents. You can't do that. You can't go to the mountain and sit and meditate for 10 hours. You're going to kill yourself. You know, what people are going to do? That's your dragons. So when you slay your dragons and you go, I don't care about that. I care about me and what I ultimately want. And it's not the selfish thing, it's the soul's calling. It's not, I want to be rich and, drink margaritas all day and be served by 10 waitresses or waiters. It's not about that. It's about that journey within, the unique gift that you've been given, and you have been. Every human being has. You have to find that within you, and it's clearly indicated from childhood. That's why in the journey I take them back to childhood. What did you love doing? Playing with dolls or helping people? Did you play doctor? Did you play cowboys and crooks? Were you interested in space? Those are indications that have come, So there's been this journey from the beginning, but then you bought into what your parents and your society said. Son, you need to grow up. Daughter, you can't be doing that. You need to get a job and a degree and then become a corporate slave for 15 years until you hit a brick wall and you've run out of Prozac and you're going, what the hell am I doing here, right? And for a lot of people, it's the pub, right? Or the bars, right? Hitting the bars. And and then life becomes this torturous event. And if you look at the rate of suicides we've got going, male suicides as well. I mean, no, it's not. I mean, it's not tragic. I don't like this word tragic, but it's a waste because you didn't see what you had and you chose to ignore and cover up what life really is. And that's your choice. I have no sympathy for that.
So I hate to do it because as I started with, I can go on all day. This has been such a great conversation, but I am going to start our wrap up. If you can recommend one book, I know you've given us a few, or one additional piece of advice, what would it be?
Yeah, that's a tough one. So I would say to engage with yourself, sit by yourself for a few minutes. That would be the most important thing I would get any person to do, because we have so many distractions. Everybody's vying for your attention, and so if you can sit. Blaise Pascal, he said all man's or humanity's problems stem from the fact that he can't sit alone in his own space of quiet. He or she sit, be quiet, and listen to the savagery happening in your mind. If you had to write out those thoughts and feelings you had about yourself, you would never say that to your worst enemy, what you say to yourself. And it's not fair. But listen to yourself and see how you talk. and then you'd have an understanding. Because we're always, I don't feel so good, I'll go onto YouTube and watch Wayne Dyer. But listen to yourself, and then say, what do I need and where do I go? And you don't need help. That's a very important thing I want to tell you. You're not broken. None of us are. There's nothing wrong with you. You're not a problem waiting to be fixed. You are perfect. My job, as other people's jobs would be, is to show you why you're perfect. Not why you're broken. Why you're perfect, but you're not seeing it. So I'll end up with Rumi, and he says, what you seek is seeking you. But first, you have to get out of your own way. Right? We are our biggest blocks.
Love that so much. That is so powerful. Thank you so much for sharing it. For our listeners who would love to follow you, learn more, I mean, I've seen some great videos you do. How can they access all that content you have to offer?
Well, you can go to, if you type into Google Rishad Ahmed Zen Coach, Rishad Ahmed Zen Coach, that should do it. You could go to rishadahmed.com, or yeah, that's enough. Or just type that in. I'm on LinkedIn generally. I just can't be everywhere. But yeah, I've got a YouTube channel as well, and you can follow me there as well. A lot of free content. We have a 21-day challenge, which is an incredible document and things where you can go through and by yourself look at yourself, and it's very, very powerful. So I encourage anyone to do it. I set it up during the pandemic because I realized many people can't afford coaching and they need help. So I set up this entire, and every second Saturday I offer free online coaching as well. So yeah, a lot of free stuff as well.
Well, again, thank you so much for taking the time. It was an absolute pleasure to speak with you and listen to such wise words. Can't wait to follow you and hear what you've got coming up next. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Jacklyn. You've been a really good listener. Really enjoyed that too. And thank you for being so attentive and asking such great questions.
My pleasure. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.